G'day podcasters, welcome back to Season 6 of True Blue Conversations with your host Adam Bloom, the author of Easy Target, now available at adambloom.com.au. 8 years ago, after returning from 3 tours of Afghanistan and then gaining experience and education in financial planning, Warren Loudon teamed up with fellow veteran Dave Vaughan and started Loudon and Vaughan Private Wealth, founded with the underlying belief that every person matters and every dollar counts, providing comprehensive tailored financial advice and wealth management services for you and your family. Loudon and Vaughan will guide you towards your financial goals with integrity and transparency. Whether you're planning for retirement, investing for the future, or managing your family's wealth, they've got you covered. Visit loudonandvaughan.com.au or call 02 9538 2704 to book a meeting with Warren today.
G'day, welcome back to True Blue Conversations. Today I'm coming to you live from the Gold Coast and I'm joined by a very good friend of mine, and she has a very inspirational story that is going to touch and really defines what resilience is. And she started a trek around Australia and she kayaked around Australia in 254 days, setting the world record. And when she started this, and we're going to get into this a little bit later, it was for mental health. And as you all know, with my own struggles, that I 10 years ago attempted suicide, and so this is one that touches my heart, and it's an absolute honour to have Bonnie Hancock on the podcast. So Bonnie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here in this shade on this hot afternoon.
No, it's great, and we'll get into that story a little bit later. But Bonnie, I want to go back to a young Bonnie and talk about you, life growing up. What were you like at school? Do you have any brothers and sisters? And where did your love of the water come from?
Yeah, totally. So I grew up in the beautiful little coastal town of Sawtell. It's a couple of hours south of the Gold Coast in Coffs Harbour. And I've got 3 sisters. So I am actually third in line. So I was the middle child.
How was that, being the middle child?
I know. Oh my gosh. I remember stirring up my older sisters, like getting into their wardrobe and, you know, choosing clothes for myself when they weren't there and getting into so much trouble. So I was the really annoying little sister. And I remember just watching them in the ocean, you know, out on their boards and swimming. They started nippers at 5, so a few years before me. And I just remember thinking, that looks so much fun. I can't wait until it's my turn. And literally when I was 5 years old, I was out there in the ocean and, you know, I would paddle my little boogie board on the side when they would train on their proper boards. And when it was finally my turn to train at the age of 8, I just absolutely loved it. So I was a real water baby.
Yeah, right. And was that through your mum and dad? Were they the same, or where did it come from?
Yeah, so Dad grew up actually in Tasmania and was always a runner. So, you know, down there, surf life saving's not as common. So
too cold.
Yeah, it's freezing. I've done a few clinics down there and the kids literally wear steamers. There's snow on the mountains. They're so tough. So running and cricket for him. Mum grew up in Coffs. So Mum always surfed and played basketball. So definitely, yeah, sort of have those athletic genes, I guess, either side. But yeah, they just wanted us to be safe at the beach, I think was the main thing. We lived about 200 metres from the beach. We had a little beach track. So if their kids were going to be running around playing on the beach, it made sense to get us into nippers.
Yeah, right. And for you, so how does it work for people who, you know, like I know, like surf life saving and being in nippers, it's a real... It's competitive, and you get, and so what, do you just go down to your local club and go, I want to join nippers, or how does it work?
Pretty much. We have, I coach up here. I've coached at Mermaid Beach the last few years. I do a Nobby Surf Club now. And often people come up to us on the beach and say, how do we get our kids involved? And, you know, nippers typically runs on a Sunday morning. There are some clubs that do Saturdays. And, you know, tens of thousands of Aussie kids go every Sunday and do nippers for a couple of hours. And you learn how to keep safe at the beach. Most importantly, how to keep others safe, how to spot a rip, how to be safe in the ocean. So that was just where it started, was just safety. And then there's the competitive side if you want to do it.
And for you, you said you're the middle sister, and one of your older sisters would go on and become a very well-known Ironwoman, and you would do the same thing as well. And So talk me through that. Do you train, like, obviously as you get, like when you're a young, whippersnapper and nipper, training is once every Sunday, and then once you want to go in the competitive side, does that then... That's when it gets more serious and you got to get coaches and all that sort of thing?
Totally. So I can from maybe the age of 12, I was training twice a day.
Oh, wow.
So that's swimming in the pool, 5-6 kilometres. It's afternoons at the beach, on the board, later on the ski, which is similar to a kayak. Twice a day from the age of 12, really, really hard training, but it was always self-driven. I was there, I asked Dad to build a chin-up bar in the backyard at the age of 10. That gives you a bit of insight. I just absolutely loved it. I loved the routine and I loved the work ethic required to succeed in the sport of surf life saving. It's similar to triathlon in terms of being a multidisciplinary sport. So it's a lot of balls to juggle. You can't really have a weak leg. So there's running, swimming, board paddling, and later ski. So there's actually 4 legs involved.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I did my first triathlon last year, so I know what that's like. And and probably I'd say my weakest is probably my bike, and I hate it. I hate the bike, but and for you, was there anything that you struggled with at first and you had to work on, or when was your sort of weaker, like your Achilles heel?
Ironically, the ski.
Right.
The ski was always the one that held me back. It cost me so many wins in the Ironwoman, and that's what I think led me to become a specialist ski paddler. So at the age of 25, I had a few years out of the sport. I came back into it in my late 20s, and I came back and I did 6 months of Ironwoman racing, and I thought, I sort of don't love this anymore. I don't love this sport. And I realised I just needed a new challenge. And I thought, ski paddling has always been my weak leg. It's what's cost me. I never had that physical strength when I was younger in the way that a lot of the ski paddlers do. And I thought, I'm going to become a ski paddler. And within 12 months, I'd had more results than I'd ever had as an Ironwoman, and found that I was actually really suited to this craft, which was very skill-based. It's a lot of power and a lot of speed. Ironic, because I ended up paddling around Australia, but that's what led me to it, was actually just wanting to take on a challenge and become good at something I had never been good at. Yeah.
So is that because I know, like, I've seen the Nutrigrain Ironwoman and Ironman on the TV. So when you say that you go into the ski, is that the same? Like, is there competitions and you can be? Is it exactly the same as the Ironman and Ironwoman?
Absolutely, and particularly in this day and age, there's the Shore and Partners World Ocean Series, and within that, there's the Iron Person race. But there's the swim, the board, the ski legs. There's big prize money on them. They're streamed, live on television. It's almost just as prestigious to be an amazing individual athlete or single discipline. Not a lot of people know this, but surf life saving will come into the Olympics most likely in 2032.
Yeah, right.
And they'll be looking for specialist ski paddlers as part of the team event. So there's going to be huge profile on these individual athletes.
So do you, because skiing and the Ironman and Ironwoman has, I remember Kai Hurst, and you guys are now, from what you and your sisters have done, and you're the trailblazers for these new young kids that, as you say, in 2032 are going to end up in the Olympics. That's pretty, to have that legacy, it's pretty cool. And do you regret that you're not in this generation now, of where there's sponsorship now, and you guys had to fight a lot for everything that you got?
Yeah.
Do you sort of feel that, or you're happy where you ended up?
Yeah, totally. I think definitely the latter. I'm so happy that I, made the professional Nutrigrain Ironwoman series at 17. I was able to do that for the better part of a decade, travel the world racing. The people that I do feel for are the individual craft. So the specialist board paddlers, the ski paddlers, the kids who didn't want to be Iron men or women and who kind of tried to become Iron men or women and just couldn't quite crack into that series, so gave the sport up. And I think potentially there was some there. These were people who were winning Australian titles on the board, etc. who would have stayed in the sport and potentially become Olympians. So what it does, it opens up this whole new pathway for kids who don't want to be Ironmen or women, and that's so fine. They want to be a board paddler, they want to be a ski paddler, and it will just honestly elevate surf life saving, I think, in the way it's done with kayak cross, in the way it's done with canoe slalom, with the Fox sisters. I think people are going to look at surf life saving and say, how did we not know about this sport? They're going to have drone footage to cover it. It's going to be incredible. So honestly, I'm so excited for what's coming. It's really
It's
really
good to
cool.
still be a part of it. And so for you, being that you go into the, Ironman and Ironwoman series, do you still go and patrol the beach and do, is that still part of, you're still in, obviously you joined the Surf Life Saving Club too.
Yep.
Where does your sense of giving back and service to the community come from? Is it your parents, or where does it come from for you?
I think so. I think, look, in surf life saving, you've got to get if you want to compete, your SRC, so Surf Rescue Certificate at 14. You then start patrolling at that age. You get your bronze medallion at 15 or 16. Just being on patrol from the age of 14, giving back to community, speaking to all different members of community, speaking to people who are 90 years old, helping to keep them safe, helping to keep their grandchildren safe. It's something I never appreciated at the age of 14, that community service started so young. It's just something I sort of did, and it's been with me that whole time. So I started coaching at the age of 20 when I became an Ironwoman, and so now that's predominantly how I give back, is actually through the coaching and training our young lifesavers to be better, so that they're the ones on patrol and rescuing people. So I spend a lot of my time doing that. But Surf Life Saving is just such a unique organisation in that way that you've got to do 25 patrol hours every year if you want to compete. It's the only sport you have to do community service.
Yeah, right.
So we actually, if you don't do the 25 hours, you can't compete. So you'll see elite Ironmen and women down there doing patrol because they have to. So what it does, it kind of, in a great way, it forces this real spirit of giving back. Yeah, it's incredible.
And for people, can you explain, Bonnie, for people who aren't aware, what does your bronze medallion involve? What do you actually have to do to get it?
Yeah, totally. So the big one, I think a lot of people find tricky. You've got to do a 400-metre pool swim in, I think it's under 9 minutes. So for a lot of people, that will, prevent them from doing it. You then have to jump in the ocean and learn on a board, in the swim as well. So there's that part of it. So that the physical aspect in the ocean as well as in the flat water. But it's really the pool swimming for a lot of people that will stop them kind of getting their bronze medallion, and people can train for years to be able to do that. So they've got to do it so we can have really competent surf life savers on patrol. And the other part on patrol, you actually have people who have their IRB drivers, so that's the little inflatable rescue boat you see.
Yep.
And your radio operators as well. You've got to learn the signals, all those sorts of things. So different people on patrol will be more qualified than others depending what they specialise in.
So is that, it's like a seniority thing, and so if you've been, so as you said, you were starting at 14 and you go down on a weekend and you do a Saturday, Sunday, and what are you there for 8 hours a day, or?
Yeah, usually it's in shifts. I think about 6 hours it's in these shifts. So different patrols will come in throughout the day. There will be a patrol captain, so that'll be a really experienced member of the patrol. So if a rescue happens, that patrol captain takes command. So they say, there might be young board paddlers, get out there on the board. They'll say to the IRB driver, out there on the IRB. Someone will be on the radio, radioing up to Surfcom. Someone will be running to get help. So it's such an amazing thing to witness when people actually have to go into this rescue mode, to see that patrol captain take command and everyone just knows their role.
Yeah, right. And for you, I've seen it many times in summer that I've gone, and you see the surf lifesavers put they put the flags in the sand, and at first I didn't know that there was a lot of science that went into where you put the flags, and it's cool seeing you wear your red and yellow, your shirt and the cap, and it's cool to see that, and it's amazing when you see that so many people take swimming for granted and how to swim, and for you in your time of patrolling, you've obviously had to deploy and save people, and has there been times where you've been oh my God, this is too hard, or like?
It's definitely, for a lot of people, they've found it really hard, and there's been situations that have been really tricky, like especially when it involves kids and people are panicking out there. I find that in that situation, I tend to go into like a sense of calm, because I've been around the ocean from 5 years old. So I know that if I've got someone giving me instructions, I need to listen, and a bit like with racing, like I need to do my job. So I sort of go into more of that, like you just switch into this mode that you're in rescue mode. We have had a few group rescues, which is always quite scary. So that's when a few different people are in trouble, and you need people to be really switched on. It's not just one patient you're going out to get. It's multiple people. And you touched on it before, the science. So rips is a rip is essentially where the water is sucking back out to sea. You can pick it up by looking at the brown water. There's often debris on the surface. And people who don't know the beach well, they might not swim in the red and yellow flags, which is where the rips aren't.
And a lot of people do that all the time. You see, and they don't. It always is the message of swim between the flags.
Exactly.
They're there for a reason.
Yeah, we put them there because we look and we find the best spot. So usually on the bank where there's nice and shallow, there's a beautiful wave, people will jump into the rip, they're pulled out to sea, and then they'll start trying to swim against the rip as well, and they might not be good swimmers. So, we've always got multiple craft on the beach. There's boards, there's IRB. We actually have the tube as well, like the Baywatch style, literally the tube. So we'll make that judgment on what's going to be the quickest to get out there to get that person. So
what do you say to young, like, families who they go to a day at the beach, and because it's not just your job to be the babysitters, like the parents have got to take some action, and like, how do they better train their kids to go, well, kids, you need to swim between the flags? Like, do we need more messages on, like, TV, or, like, because you usually see it that it's rolled out, swim between the flags, and then that's it. Like, and there's a lot of, as you know, there's a lot of multicultural people that come into Australia. They don't understand what it means to swim between the flags.
Totally.
And, like, how do we better educate kids on to be, swim safe?
There's some amazing programs in schools, and the different surf clubs will go to different local schools and do these really cool presentations. They make it fun. They get them to dress up in the, life-saving uniform while providing some really good education. But I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it starts with the parents. I think it's the parents' responsibility to make sure the kids are in the flags, good role modelling behaviour. If they're coming from another country, I think we could do more in terms of maybe on the plane having some educational videos, almost that you have to watch before landing. Not make it an optional thing. And I think we actually need a bit more signage, because I'm just looking around us here. We're in the beautiful Kurrawa Park here near Broad Beach, and actually as you walk down, there's little signs that tell you about some surf safety, but I think it needs to be more prominent.
100%. Well, there's so many drownings in Australia every summer. You hear, another drowning at a beach, and they weren't swimming between the flags, or you hear rivers or pools, and it's I think some people just take it for granted. They just take it for granted that they think, like the surf lifesavers are here, they're going to save me. It's not always the case. No,
that's it. And we say, we can't see you, we can't save you. Like, if someone's down the beach away and we're watching who's in the flags, we can't get there. Yeah. And you do hear some really tragic stories, and not always in the ocean, dams as well, in the outback. People can often be around water, and often parents don't know how to swim either. So, it's a really important thing. And, for anyone listening to this as well, just swim between the flags, because the lifesavers want to help you.
100%. And it's not something that I've spoken to another friend of mine who is a surf lifesaver, and she actually had to try and say, and they passed away, and she said that she lives with her every day, that she couldn't save that person, and everything they tried to do, and unfortunately that's just how it is. And that's why I wanted to get you on to talk about some safety around water, and because we live in Australia, it's hot, and in summer we go to the beach, or we go to dams, or we go to rivers or pools, and so I think it's great that we can have this conversation. And did you ever get to patrol with your sisters?
Oh, absolutely.
What was that like? Was that cool?
So cool. So much fun. And we'd normally squeeze a little bit of training in on patrol as well. So we'd sort of wear our cap. If the surf was good, we'd be out there, you know. So we were always kind of, I just remember running around the streets of Sawtell, barefoot, you know, running around on the beach. And just the best childhood like that too.
Yeah.
A very sheltered and innocent childhood. And, you know, you come up here at the age of 17 and, you know, you move and you're going out in surfers' paradise with the other Iron men and women. But, yeah, certainly a beautiful childhood and a very active one.
And did you, as you wore your cap, did you ever do the Baywatch run?
I think we might have impersonated a little bit. I know Courtney's favourite was definitely Pamela Anderson, so she always said she was CJ, and I think I can't remember what the other one was. I don't know the other one. But, yeah, we loved watching Baywatch, and I think we wanted to be lifeguards, to be honest, watching that. So
I think everyone's done it at least once and done that run, and it's that awkward, and you look and go, why am I doing this?
Oh, definitely. And I can tell you it's a very different situation when you're actually down there saving someone. So,
of course.
But it's so fun.
So with your training, did you, like, at school, did your schoolwork suffer a bit, or were you pretty good? Like, were you actually pretty academically pretty good?
Yeah, quite the opposite. I found I've always been pretty good at time management. I had to be in primary school and high school. I remember getting assignments done a week before they were due to hand them in before going away to race. So, I mean, we were racing really every second weekend down in Sydney. It was a lot of travel, a lot of sacrifice. I am academic. I love academics. I always have. And so I would help Courtney. I would often read her books for English and do her assignments for her, which we still joke about to this day. She would then help me with my training very much so.
Yep.
So we kind of helped each other. But yeah, I actually, there's a funny story. This drama assignment, every year it was the same. And so George's assignment got passed down to Courtney, got passed down to me, and we had the same teacher who marked it differently each time. But we didn't do much of that. That's just a little bit cheeky. But definitely it was a really big juggle, I think, when it came to exams, because, I mean, I was training twice a day while doing the HSC in year 12. I really wanted to get a high mark. I wanted to be a dietitian. And so that year 12, I just remember, was so intense, and my mum being so wonderful at helping me study. Never ever forget doing these huge English and maths exams and then going to training, training for the Coolangatta Gold in the hot sun and coming back, then doing a science exam. And so I think the exams were the most intense.
I think we take our parents for granted, and I think in today's day and age where and you're only a couple of years older than me, and I think we grew up in a really good time. Like, it was still, you would go out and you would, as long as you were home before the street lights were on, and we had the old payphones, and it was, you were outdoors, so you were building dirt jumps. You were you were running amok. You weren't sitting on a computer screen watching or playing games and watching movies. You were out enjoying what kids, and I really feel this generation they've sort of missed out on that. But it's not until and I wrote my book as well, that I realised what my parents actually sacrificed, and what yours did as well. Like driving down the coast for you to compete, and getting you to the beach and making training, and you don't realise what your parents do. Now how busy is life, and I look and go, how did they fit it in?
Totally, it wasn't just like handing over an iPad and you're keeping the kid, busy or distracted doing that. It was driving us around to do our amazing outdoor activities we wanted to do. For us, we were so lucky having a street full of kids and, cousins, and, my sort of childhood was just running around. We had this game called Missions, where we would set literally missions and give each other rewards. So there was gold, silver and bronze, and it might be running across bindies, knocking on the scary next door neighbour's house, jumping off the sort of grandmother's balcony onto rolling under a tyre, all these crazy things. That was so much fun.
Knock and run. And
I feel so sorry for kids these days for missing out on that stuff
100%.
Because it was just the best. And, to share that with my sisters. But, my parents, we were driving to Sydney. It's a 9-hour drive every second weekend. I remember this one time we were coming home from the carnival and it had been a huge weekend and Dad drove into the garage with the boards on the roof. And I just remember this almighty crunch and us girls sitting in the back seat laughing and Dad just putting his head on the steering wheel oh my goodness. And I just remember being so cheeky laughing at it. I never thought at the time he would have to then fork out hundreds of dollars to pay for that.
Yep.
He's just driven us back from Sydney. We're in the back just with no perspective, laughing. And you look back and go, oh my goodness, he's working 2 jobs around that. They're putting food on the table. And I thought recently, we never went on a whole lot of holidays, in terms of spending money up to the Gold Coast. I think because all our money went into sport and these trips, and I'm so grateful for that.
So was that all 4 of you were in the sport?
Yeah.
So that's, and back, we're talking, mid-90s, early 2000s, so there wasn't the sponsorship around, and so a lot of that you had to fund yourself, didn't you?
Absolutely. So we did a few little fundraisers at the club. I remember Courtney made the state team. We did a little disco to raise money, sausage sizzles. We would go around knocking on doors to sell raffle tickets. We thought this man in the street down from us was a murderer because he came out with this butcher's knife when we were selling these raffle tickets and it had blood on it because he'd been chopping up some sort of meat and then we just thought he was had murdered someone. So all these little stories. But we had to get out and do it ourselves. And it was this thing of everyone pitching in because you had to, because no one had a whole ton of money. We had to get over to Perth for the Australian titles. We had to get down to Victoria for interstate. You had to pay your own way. So it literally was that work ethic was born out of necessity, really.
Well, I think it's something, so my brother he represented New South Wales in running and he was a very, very good long distance runner. But he got to the age of being 16 and there was no money in it. And it was either you get a job and an apprenticeship or try and make it as... And some of the sports that are well sponsored and, like cricket or all these other major sports, it's the smaller sports that struggle and you've really... It comes down to the passion of why you do it. Yeah. Because you're not going to, it's not going to be a high, you can't go and be successful. Well, if you get picked up, eventually you can get some sponsorship, but it's not, you're not going to go and retire after, you win an Ironman series. That doesn't happen.
You do it for the love of it. You do. I remember Courtney and I getting our first sort of sponsorship, which was our board paid for, and we just thought we were absolute superstars getting these free boards. I remember meeting Candice Falzon, who was sponsored by Infront. She was in the professional series at the time, and I was so excited. I was so starstruck. But yeah, you do it for the love of it. And as I said, it was totally self-driven. Courtney sort of taught me to never cut corners, to do the full session properly and all these little things. She taught me work ethic and what it took to be a professional Ironwoman later on. And then she was winning the series, so what it took to win. So I was so blessed because I just had this example in front of me every day, this is what it takes. So I was really lucky. And when we moved up here to Northcliffe and joined the surf club, it was professional Iron women all around me who I'd been watching on TV. I remember Courtney coming down to board training with Zane Holmes' signature on her singlet and he was lining up on the line next to her. I was like, oh my God, that's so embarrassing. But these were just our heroes. And as I said, when you're seeing what it takes every day, no one there's taking shortcuts. They're putting in the work. And that's what I love about sport. It's a humbler because if you don't do the work, you're not going to perform. You're not going to win, certainly. There's just no getting around that, which is what I absolutely love about it.
So with that, and I'm interested to talk about that and we'll get into leadership and a little bit of that later on when we talk about the journey around Australia. But Courtney was sort of setting an example for you, but I'm interested to know of that. Where does it turn from, okay, this is just a hobby, to then the mindset to switch like Courtney and yourself to go, okay, it's now professional?
Totally.
What do you do? Do you wake up one day and go, okay, now I've been selected, okay, I'm now, how does that mindset change from just being a hobby to then going, this is professional? I
think from the age of 12, we both knew we wanted to be professionals. We used to watch the Meadow Lease series and all of the girls run around, and it was just from the age of 12, like that young, which is why I'm so passionate about encouraging these young kids of today, because this seed is planted young, probably even earlier than that we thought we absolutely love this, we want to do something. But 12 years old, I remember watching that TV with Courtney and grabbing a broomstick and pretending to paddle like, we were the kayakers or ski paddlers, and we just wanted it more than anything. We would then, over the coming years, talk about moving to the Gold Coast together, sharing one of those little VW Beetles that were really popular off the movie Bring It On. And we're like, hey, we'll share that, or we'll get a Suzuki Swift. We'll share the car. We're going to be doing everything together. That is so impractical to think about sharing a car. But we thought, we'll move up, we'll live together. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. So that seed was planted really, really young. And yeah, we did that at 17. As soon as we finished school, we were up there.
Yeah, right. And so with that now being a professional, essentially it becomes like a job.
Yeah.
Are you just working part-time or studying, you're doing uni? You mentioned that you wanted to be a dietitian. So you're studying, you're training, 2 to 3 times now that you're a professional? You're starting to step it up a lot more?
Yeah, it's 3 times a day. So moving up there at 17, I remember reading this program and seeing the 3 training sessions. I thought, okay, that's a mistake. It's an option. Like you choose either one. You're like, no, that's what's expected up here is 3 times a day training. So I was doing uni at that stage as well. So I would speed to uni, pull up in a loading zone, often run into class, do that, come back, do the midday session, come back in the afternoon on the craft. It's just absolutely intense, and but that's what it takes. It's a multidiscipline sport. You've got to do gym as well, running on the sand, running on the road, swimming in the pool and the ocean, board paddling often in the canal or the ocean, and ski paddling in the canal and ocean. So it's not all in the surf. There's a lot of flat water work. There's a lot of grind, and that's what I absolutely love about it.
And as you say, if you don't do the work, you get found out. And for you, how did you deal with the injuries and the setbacks? Especially being that the more you train, the more likely to get little niggles. And was it frustrating? And how did you? Because it's a lonely sport too. It's not a. You can you do team? You can do teams or not really?
Yeah, it's a funny one. So the professional series is all individual. So you line up, you do these Ironwoman races on your own. But at the Australian titles and world titles, you do have team events. So board relays, ski relays. There's a swim team where it's an all-in race and you get points. So it's a bit of a combination of both. But at the Olympics, there'll be both individual races and a team event, which is really cool. But it can be very isolating because you're training with the people you're racing against. So it's a really intense, unique environment. So in our squad of maybe 20 girls, 10 of them would be in the professional series. That's half of the professional series. So it's crazy. How everyone's going. Who's going to be the big threat that weekend. It's bizarre.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, as I said, I wanted to get you on to talk about this because it's fascinating. Even for me, it's I don't know much about the sport, and it's this is why we do podcasts, to educate people, to say, hey, look, if you live near a beach and you want to get into the sport, go and do it. And you never know where it's going to lead to. And it sort of leads me now to, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, that you got this crazy idea to, and it's during COVID, you came up with this crazy idea that I'm going to get on a ski and I'm going to travel around and kayak all the way around Australia. What was going through your mind?
I know, right? During COVID as well, when there was nothing happening. So, yeah, basically, as we know, mid-2020, the whole world shut down. We were in and out of lockdown. I remember going to the library. It was one of the first things to open back up, and I just wanted to read some books, and I picked up 3 books. And on the bottom was a book called Fearless, and it was about Freya Hofmeister, the German woman who paddled around Australia in 2009. And I just read that book and thought, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard. I don't know how I haven't heard of Freya's story before. And honestly, by the time I closed that book, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to paddle around Australia. As I said, our whole year of racing was cancelled. So I was planning to go to Paris, Mauritius, South Africa, everywhere. And I just was craving adventure. I was just curious as to whether I could do it. But it was also over the 6 months that followed of thinking, oh, what am I doing? This is too much. And finally deciding to go all in. It was this willingness or kind of acceptance that there was a very big possibility I would fail. So COVID, as I said, was running rampant. I could get to WA and paddle 3,000 kilometres and get turned around. I could at any stage get attacked by a crocodile or a shark. Something could happen to my crew. I'm 100 kilometres out to sea. It could be too dangerous. I was willing to start with that knowledge that that was a very real possibility. And saying that, you were going to have to drag me out of there because I was like, I'll do anything to get this done. I want to get this record.
Because what was the original record?
It was 10 and a half months.
Yeah,
I was
right.
planning to do this in 6 months, which is totally unrealistic. That's not accounting for anything of Mother Nature's doing. We were stuck in islands for 10 days at times. We were stuck, for 2 weeks at a time. You can only remain idle with this record for 14 days.
Oh, wow.
So if we got stuck somewhere or we got COVID, this thing was done. So it was really scary knowing that. But I was like, that's so exciting. Like all of these things that could happen, how we're going to have to adapt and deal with it. Let's do it. Let's bloody do it.
So what did your mum and dad and your sisters say when you go, I'm going to have a go at kayaking around Australia and I'm actually going to go for the world record?
Yeah.
What was their thoughts?
They were really quiet. I remember telling them they almost just went silent because the first thing they said was there's crocodile. Like crocodiles inhabit a third of our coastline. So they start in Broome at the top of WA and they go around to Townsville, or some would say Mackay. These things are up to 6 metres long. That's as big as my ski, which is like a kayak. My ski's 8 kilograms. These things weigh a ton. Like if one of them bump you, or like we know what crocodiles are like. They'll hunt, they'll stalk, they're predators. They're absolutely just vicious basically when they want to be. In saying that, sharks are more opportunistic, so sharks will see you and kind of go for you if they want to. Crocodiles will hunt and figure out if it's a good decision for them. It's strange. Like I've learned a lot about their behaviour just through listening to experts and reading and stuff. But I knew if I was to get this done, like I knew if I didn't do it, I would regret not doing it because I would just wonder if it was possible. Could I have paddled around Australia? I didn't want to get to 80 years old and wonder that. So I thought, okay, yeah, they're there, but I'm going to talk to the experts and see what's my best method of defence. Speaking to fishermen who live up there, they said, paddle as far out to sea as possible. That's going to be your best defence. They're populated on the coast. You get big ones that travel between islands, but you go way out to sea and you're going to be okay.
So what are we talking, 500 kilometres out to sea?
The furthest I was out to sea was 500 kilometres crossing the Great Australian Bight at the bottom of the country. That was another big decision I had to make. So would I hug the coastline or would I cut straight across, the first person to do it, save 1,000 K? So it was 12 days crossing the Great Australian Bight. It's freezing in that water. The seas are 5 to 6 metres. It's huge. My crew was violently ill most of the time. I lost 8
you were too.
kilos from seasickness. But when we made it across that bight, it was this feeling, knowing the crocodiles were coming soon because we went clockwise, it was this feeling of like, okay, we're ready now. And it was this, I don't think we were at the start, but now we're ready.
So we'll talk about some of the journey, and I want to, there's some, when I read your book, I was just in awe of what you had done, and I was just like, holy, like, and I lived the whole. I was like I was in the kayak with you. I was like I was in, and I'm going along. I'm like, oh my god, yeah, this is that's exactly how I'd feel. But how do you logistically decide that you're going to do this, and like, how do you fund it, and like how, like, because it's one thing to say I'm going to do this, but then, and it's like you say it in the book, but it's I'm going to do this, but then, oh, hang on, there's logistics behind this.
Yeah.
How did all that start? And like, did you have a time frame of, okay, this is when I'm going to go, or like you got to take weather? So talk me through the logistics.
I wanted to start December 2021. I didn't want to leave it any longer than that. COVID was still going on. They were saying this is going to last for years anyway. I was just so keen to get going, and I was able to, in that 6 months, raise half the money to get around. So it was $250,000 it was going to cost. That would be the biggest one, the biggest barriers for people. I approached Shaw and Partners. So Earl Evans, the CEO there, I said to him, like, you're the most amazing supporter of women in sport and surf life saving, and I need your help with this. I've got this crazy idea, but I think I can do this. And the way he puts it is like, if there was 1% chance possibility she could do this, well, it was worth it. And so he backed me in with no evidence I could get this done. And so that allowed us to get to the start line. And I think, you know, working 3 jobs, riding my bike in the hot sun, leading into it, my husband giving up his job to come with me, all of those things, it was like, well, I'm going to give this the best crack I possibly can. As I said, you'd have to drag me out of that water. And that, I think, gave me the resilience, firstly, to get to Sydney. To just get to Sydney, because that first week was hell. I was paddling 80 to 100 kilometres a day. I couldn't move at the end of the day. I couldn't speak. I had bulging discs pretty much from a month in. But it was like, everyone who's backed me in, I owe it to them to do my best. And I owe it to myself too. So it was just sometimes looking at that next week, that day at a time. It wasn't looking beyond that, because it's just so much physical pain every day. Like, and unbelievable.
For you with that, and you talk about it a lot in the book, but how did you mentally prepare? Like, yeah, okay, you can paddle, you can prepare so much, but that water it's treacherous. It'll throw up Mother Nature, and you saw it at its absolute, its best and its worst. How did you mentally prepare for that?
I know. It's so ironic. So I remember looking at photos and videos of crocodiles leading in, like trying to picture what they would look like approaching me, and just going, right, I need to accept the possibility that will probably happen. I did a lot of research, speaking to skippers, super yacht captains, meteorologists about currents and wind patterns. And the world's top meteorologist is Sir Roger Badham. So he advises the sailors and super yacht captains. And he said, everyone prior has gone anti-clockwise, you're going to go clockwise. And I was like, why would I do this, different to what's been done before? And he said, well, you want to break a world record, don't you? And I said, yeah. He goes, you're going to have to do a few things differently. And he said, the East Australian current that pushes the warm water from the Great Barrier Reef to Tasmania, that's going to be your best friend while your body's conditioning at the start. I got in that. I was a week ahead of the world record by the time I got to Sydney. I had that East Australian current helping me while my body conditioned. So many people questioned that. People were like, you should not be going clockwise. You should not be cutting across the bight. You definitely should not be paddling a ski in crocodile waters. But I was like, you've got to paddle every metre of coastline, right? So I listened to him. I was doubtful. It paid off. Cutting across the bight paid off. And yeah, there was 3 crocodile sightings near my ski in the Northern Territory. Absolutely terrifying. But I knew that all those things were a necessity. But it was honestly this 6 months of research leading in. And I thought, you know what? I can read as much as I want, but my best bit of research is speaking to the people who have 30, 40, 50 years experience in this space. And like, what you can learn from one conversation speaking to an expert is so much more than anything you can read or watch. So I picked up the phone and I started calling people, and it was 10 degrees of separation that led me to Sir Roger.
Yeah, right. And did you reach out to the former world record holder? Like, did you and saying, hey, look, I'm going to have a crack at this?
Yeah.
And did they receive it well, that, okay, you're going to have a crack at this?
Yes, so she was actually, and still is, actually paddling, like circumnavigating North America, which is crazy. So she's pretty much off the grid. So we did a few email exchanges at the start. She sort of said, good luck, all that sort of thing. But then I haven't spoken to her since, because she's literally off the grid. Like, she's done all of these incredible paddle adventures since and has almost paddled the world. So would love to meet her one day, absolutely, and share stories. But I probably gathered, because she was paddling, most information from reading her blogs. She kept a blog while she paddled around, but I also knew that I was going to do this differently to her. I was going the other way around. I wanted to do twice pretty much the kilometres in one day than she was doing on some days. So whilst there was some sort of blueprint, I wanted to beat that record. So I took it kind of lightly, or with her experience, because I knew mine would be different.
So for you, once you've got that backing, and like there's no backing out now, like you're doing this.
Yeah.
Talk me through the process of now it's game day, we're going out, and as you say, you know, sharks, crocodiles. Could you have people come and support you along the way and like paddle beside you or with you, or it's totally solo?
A lot of the time we're 100 kilometres out to sea. So the way I put it for perspective, when you stand on the beach and look to the horizon, it's 40 kilometres you can see to the horizon.
Wow.
So we're 100k out to sea. So you can't even see me out there. So I would absolutely have loved to have had people paddle with me. And there's a really funny story of Jimmy Walker, who's an Olympic kayaker in Newcastle. He paddled out amongst the big oil tankers to try and find me, and paddled 28 kilometres, and we were still too far out.
Wow.
So he had a jet ski with him, and eventually the jet ski said, "Mate, I'm turning back. This is ridiculous. I don't have enough fuel." And Jimmy kept paddling, but he never found us. We were trying to meet up with him.
Wow.
So there were people who tried, and certainly towards the back end of the trip in Townsville, we did a little bit over in Fremantle as well. But it was so impractical, because the other thing is, I don't know exactly what time I'm getting to different destinations, right? So I might say, I should be there around 2. I might not get there till 5 o'clock because Mother Nature's turned and thrown up a headwind at me, or vice versa. I might be flying if she's given me a tailwind. So it was just not practical, which was really lonely at times and isolating. In saying that, I'm quite open about this. Towards the end, having these beautiful, amazing people paddle with me was really hard, because I was physically cooked. I was mentally cooked. I couldn't straighten my fingers. I had bulging discs, and people wanted to have a conversation with me for half a day. That was really tricky as well. So it would have been hard having people there the whole time.
Oh, of course. And did you ever think, when you set out, and you talk about it in the book a lot, the loneliness, and we're going to talk about some close calls in a minute, but did you ever think, in the whole process of when you're actually about to start and then starting, did you ever think, I might not come back alive, like this, I might die doing this?
Sort of, I guess when you go into the crocodile territory, it's just like, holy shit, I don't even know what to expect here. But I had the most incredible crew. And even when the wind was too strong to be able to talk to them, it was just their physical presence of being there on the boat and being able to see them that reassured me. That knowing that there was always someone on Bonnie watch, there was always someone on the side of the boat watching me, even at night time with the torch. That alone, it was enough. And we would speak and talk, and they would read me trivia while I was sobbing at the end of 213 kilometres. They would tell me jokes, while I couldn't straighten my fingers in the paddle and I'm trying to keep paddling. They would tell me childhood stories while I was trying to stretch my back out on that bloody ski with the bulging discs. And it was them that got me through. And I would look to them and I would say, cool, this is my job. I need to paddle as far and fast as I can every single day. They're on that boat. They're, having to manage the sails. They're cooking, they're cleaning, they're looking after me. They're doing their job. So it was this feeling like this responsibility, this obligation to get in the water and do the best job I could of paddling. And there's something so empowering about being part of a team. So it was never a solo effort, as much as my name is the one on that record certificate. Every day it was like, this is my job here in the water. I'm the only person who can do this. And there was something that buoyed me in knowing that.
So how did you overcome the fear of, as you say, you're 100 kilometres out, sharks and eventually crocodiles and sharks and sea snakes, and like that fear doesn't go away. How did you harness that fear?
Yeah, I think it drives you. I mean, I paddled the furthest ever and the whole trip, the biggest kilometres in that Northern Territory, because you don't want to hang around in those waters too long. You certainly don't want to sit there with your legs off the side. And I just remember thinking, if I can just smash this out and paddle, every day it was 150, 160. I'd go, let's go for 200, just kept increasing the kilometres. I was like, the quicker I can get these waters done, the quicker I'm out of crocodile territory. You're not hanging up there paddling slow. So there's something incredibly motivating about that. So I sort of used it to my advantage. It was sort of knowing that the waters weren't safe that really drove me. And I would just get into this zone every day. I would pump Stormzy in my ears every day, or Eminem, and I would turn it up. You almost start to feel like you're Eminem by the end of it. And I would just listen to these lyrics, and I would just paddle, and I would just channel this aggression into it. And also, again, having that crew there. And they did paddle certain sections with me. I had my coach, Mike Janes, in the Northern Territory, who did, it was quite funny actually, because he said, I'm going to paddle 100 kilometres with you. I think he did 50, and I was calling him an old man. His back was so cooked, but I was so grateful for that 50 kilometres he did with me. But it was the crew that always just kept me on track. And we would get on the boat. If I need to debrief, we would do that. Maybe I didn't. But it was a combination of music to just change the backdrop to that suffering, and the backdrop to the whole thing, so that you can't hear the splashes in the water around you as well, because that's terrifying. And the other thing I forget to mention, there was these huge sea snakes, big python-like things in the water. They would coil up at me as I passed. For people who don't like snakes, I hate snakes. It was terrifying. So ironically, often I was thinking about the sea snakes because I could actually see them. God knows if I had a crocodile following me at that point.
And for you came, there was a few near-death experiences, and there was one time where you were going over the bight and you knocked off into the freezing water. The ski went up, it hit you in the face, and straight away you're in you're in the bite. This is now shit. Was there a bit of panic at that point, or what was going through your mind?
Absolutely. It's absolutely freezing out there. And that boat, so it takes about 500 metres for the boat to turn around and come back. So that's 25 knot winds, and that boat's sailing away. You're just floating there in the ocean waiting for your boat to come back to you. It's terrifying, and you think, what the hell am I doing right now? Why am I out here in the middle of the ocean? Was this all worth it?
Yep.
That boat did come back. I got pulled on board. I had to get back in the water and paddle the next day. But there's something about an experience like that that also builds this resilience in you, because by the time we got to the end of that bight, I remember climbing to the top of Door Island. It was the first point of land contact we'd had. And I looked to the left, and that's the bit I'd paddled, and I thought, we have conquered that. That whole stretch of ocean, it was ugly, it was gritty, and it was messy, but we did that. And I looked to my right, and I saw the ocean, this expanse of ocean as far as I could see, and that was still to go. But I thought, we can do this.
Was it at the start, when you first started, were you thinking, oh my God, I've bit off more than I can chew?
Absolutely. From day one. From day one, we had this awesome northerly. So as paddlers, we want tailwind behind us. I was so blessed that we had a northerly to push us down to Ballina. And my husband and I had a fight on the first day about how far I was going to go, and I just wanted to paddle further. But we had the northerlies for the first week, and then I had my first headwind. And it was just off near Port Macquarie, and I was paddling into this headwind, going nowhere, just thinking, what if we get a week of headwinds and I can't move, and I know people are following this journey, and I don't think I can actually go beyond here. And I remember putting my paddle down and saying, I can't. And then I was like, you only have to get to a month. You only have to look to that month. Just break it down into a month. I got to a month, and I was like, okay, you're here. You're near the border of Victoria. Now look to the next month. And it was just this thing. And by the time I got to 2 months, I was a completely different athlete. I'd put 15 kilos on leading into this trip. I wasn't comfortable on day one getting into my ski. And by the time I got to the bottom of the country, my physique had developed into an ultra endurance athlete. I could paddle 150 kilometres a day. I was enjoying it. And I didn't expect that. I started enjoying it.
Which I look at that and go, that's just crazy. It's just, and I think too, that was one near-death experience. And then there was one of your crew was with you from the start, and you you tried to reenact the famous scene of Castaway.
Yes.
And so you got down, you kissed the sand, but you nearly died. Talk me through this and what happened in this scary moment.
So the skipper had talked about death adders, right? They're fatal. If they bite you, they're fatal. Apparently, people have died from them. And so Door Island, there's this big sign that says, beware of the death adders. I came into the island, I knelt down, I literally had that Tom, I was joking about it as well to my crew as I'm paddling, I'm going to do the Tom Hanks Castaway. I kissed the sand and I hear this, I think it was a get back or watch out from my crewmate, Blake, and he had a plank of wood in his hand. I'm like, this driftwood, I'm like, what the hell is going on? And this snake is literally right in front of me, had slithered down, and I'm on the ground. And he just gets this plank of wood and knocks the snake away from me. So I'd crossed 1,200 kilometres of the Great Australian Bight. No one in history had done it. Great white sharks, killer whales, we were told to expect it all. And I come in and nearly get killed by a death adder that on this island, on dry land, how ridiculous would that have been if that would have happened?
Yeah, she's conquered so much, and then
exactly. And I had laughed at the skipper, but these death adders just roam like wild in this island, and it just shows you in Australia we have the most incredible, fascinating wildlife, but also some of the absolute most terrifying, both on the land and in the water. It's like all of the most deadly creatures that I'm going to come and live in this continent because it's amazing. And that's in the middle of the ocean. That's on an island. There's no land around it. So they live on this island, but just the craziest, most ironic thing, And after the death adders, then it was into the sea snakes at the top of WA.
Which, and I look at that and, as I said, in the book, we ride the whole journey with you, and you can, in the sense of how you've written the book, it's amazing because we feel what you're feeling. We're there with you, and we ride the highs and then the lows, and the lows of, as you said, bulging discs, fingers that you can't bend, freezing cold water. That there's a resilience there, Bonnie. That doesn't just come. It's almost born into you. And do you bring that back to your childhood and also your nippers and because you're doing things that you haven't done before.
Yeah.
Are you drawing back on life experience to that point?
Totally, without realising it too, and. At 10 years of age, doing those chin-ups in the backyard, thinking, well, the other girls aren't doing this. So if I can do this, then I've got an edge over them. And I'm doing this for me to make me stronger. I'm not worrying about what they're doing. What can I do to make me stronger? And so for me, it was, as I said, I read Freya's blogs and I contacted her, but I'm like, I only want to look into her journey so much because I actually am going to break that record. I'd say that to no, I'm going to break the record. And so I've got to go on my own journey with this, and I don't know what's coming, and it's terrifying to think what's in the water, but I've got to go on this journey, and I've got to be prepared that if she had a shark approach her in WA, well, that's probably not going to happen. I might have one in Victoria. It was this weird thing of knowing the paddlers that had come before and drawing inspiration from that, but also knowing I was going to have to go on this adventure on my own with my team. And I think from the age, as I said, 5 years old, wanting to get out in that ocean and just loving it, finding my happy place there, 10 years old, building that chin-up bar, 12 years old, looking at the TV, wanting to be an Ironwoman, 17, moving up to make that happen, 25, coming back as a ski paddler. It was just all of these things that led me that I felt like this is where I was meant to be, right here, right now. And I would say that to my crew as well. I was like, I'm meant to be doing this. You're meant to be here. We're meant to be here. and the most incredible scenery as well. That's what helped get me through. Like, at the end of the day, when you've done this ridiculous, brutal paddle that's just disgusting, you'd look up and the sky, it looked like someone touched it with a paintbrush, like purples, pinks, down to yellows and oranges. And we would just look at each other and go, how crazy is this? Like 200 kilometres out in the ocean, we would just be like singing and dancing, and the crew would put the Yui boom on. We'd be dancing to Lana Del Rey in the middle of the ocean with this sunset. And it was like, what is even going on right now? Like, is this even real? And that's the thing too, is that like nothing worthwhile sort of comes easy. It was like, this suffering that I'm doing right now on the ski, well, this is rewarded with this beautiful sunset. And it would always happen that way, that when we'd do something really hard, we'd come into this most incredible, bay, or be surrounded by dolphins, or just something absolutely amazing would happen almost as a reward. And it was just the most beautiful part of it.
Well, as you know now, without sacrifice, there's no reward and hard work. And what made you choose, like, when you started this paddle, you were, as I mentioned at the start, mental health was the main kicker for you to do this. Had you experienced your own mental health problems, or what? Why was it like, some people do it for cancer, or why did you choose mental health and also Gotcha for Life?
Totally. I honestly looked into a bunch of charities, but it was through COVID, knowing that people were more anxious, people were more depressed. I was seeing people around me, relationship breakdowns, people losing jobs, people were isolated. And I thought, there's no more worthwhile cause than that, right? Like, I could do this multitude of different causes or do a mix. And then it was in speaking to Earl Evans of Shaw and Partners that they had an affiliation with Gotcha for Life. And I thought, that is just awesome. Like, that is meant to be. That's going to be the charity that I support. It was really beautiful because they were able to get on board and support me throughout this paddle as well. But it was just through COVID and seeing that isolation and what was happening and reading about it and seeing it on the news. And it was amazing throughout taking people on that journey, and the amount of people that reached out with their own stories. I was not expecting that at all. I thought, cool, we can, raise a bunch of money, donate and help them with their workshops. But it was actually this connection that we developed with people who would reach out to us. And that was a really beautiful part of the social media that I said early on. I said, I don't want to filter this. I want to be raw and real. I don't care if it's me vomiting over the side, showing this is what it takes, laying on the back deck, unable to move. Like, we've got to show this stuff. This is important. And the very first time I did that was actually down in Victoria. Before that, we were showing me smashing along in the tailwinds, the beautiful bays, all the cool stuff. And it was this first post that we did, and it was just this really ugly photo. And I was like, post it. Like, post that. And they did. And I wrote this caption to it, and that got more interaction than anything else. And the one that was most interacted with, other than the finishing photos, was this photo when I did 213 kilometres up in the Gulf of 172 in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and it was to get us to safety. And my skin is blistered. I look 90 years old. I have bulging discs. I'm gritting my teeth. It's this grimace. And I'll never forget how many people commented and said, thank you for showing this. So it was this beautiful opportunity to take people on a journey where we were headed to this destination, but to go, all right, to get there, this is what we're going to have to do. It was actually really special.
And at what point are you thinking, I've got this world record? Like, was like you'd put some time in front of you, and then it was up to you, wasn't it, to stay ahead of that clock?
Yeah.
Like, it was a running clock.
Yeah.
And when did you know, okay, I'm going to get this?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that, because I'm just thinking, I don't think I've answered that before. I don't know if this is arrogant to say, when I decided, on day one to keep going, and just that's when I knew I was going to get the record. But I always had this belief I was going to get the record. But when I truly knew it was when we got to WA, we were a month and a half ahead of the world record. We'd cut across that Great Australian Bight. We saved 2 weeks in doing that.
Yeah, wow.
And I was just like, we are going to get this thing done. Like, we are coming into crocodile territory. Mind you, there was always this thing like, I could get attacked by a crocodile. We could have, you know, the boat was having issues. It was taking water on. Like, something could happen. It was this weird feeling of like, physically, like, I'm getting these Ks done, I can do this. But the scariest part was like COVID could shut this operation down. If any crewmate got sick, we were having to bypass towns and stay out in the ocean, like Newcastle, Sydney, because it was running rampant. If one crewmate got crook and went through us, we're done. So it was this weird feeling of like, I know I can do this, like I can get this done, but I can't control something that might happen. So that was always this weird. So we were never quite certain, but I knew physically, I was like, I can do this. Probably WA when we crossed that Bight.
Yeah, right. And in the book, you talk about that, the coming on land into WA, and you sort of you were in isolation yourself, because although you were with your crew at the end of each day, and it's sort of a long-winded what I'm about to say, but for you, how did you deal with that mental isolation on your own? I mean, yeah, okay, you've got music, which you talk about, but mentally you're on your own, you see your crew at the end of the day, and then you came into WA, and you were questioned by the authority guy, like the border patrol guy, and you had a bit of anxiety because I've got to get my license. Where did we last port? How did you deal with that mental isolation on your own?
Oh, totally. You know, the coolest thing, I remember actually when I felt really lonely one time, and I just remember always trying to go back to gratitude, and I would look around me, and there would always be something to be grateful for. A beautiful albatross bird in the sky that would follow me all day, a mutton bird that would be sitting or with its little friends, or, you know, seals, dolphins, turtles. There was always something going on, and that's the beautiful part about the ocean, is it's always changing. It's a dynamic environment. So I think it was finding this connection with the ocean and the wildlife, honestly. And I said that to my crew. I was like, this sounds crazy, but I said, I feel like I'm one with the ocean. I feel like now I feel more at peace in the ocean than on land. And it took a few months to get used to life back on land, because I'd been in that ski every day, 16, 18 hours a day, that this beautiful environment just became my home. So very much so, it was terrifying at times, huge seas. Mind you, that's when I absolutely love the big seas, but crocodile, shark-infested waters. But most of the time I was just absolutely in my element, and it's like that became my home in a weird way. So I was so comfortable out there that, you know, I'd pop that music in, away I go. But
so you sort of like got in a cocoon in a sense.
It was like that, yeah. And it was strange, like, you know, I'd be surrounded by dolphins or have, you know, as I said, seals come up to me, but I wasn't scared. Or even when we would see shark fins and that sort of thing, I was just like, yeah, they're there because this is their home, but it feels like it's my home too. You never quite get used to paddling in the middle of the ocean with not seeing land. That's a really foreign thing. But there was something about it that became so familiar at the same time. And it was scary. It was 3K deep in certain sections. Like, that's a lot of water underneath you. 100%. And when you know there's killer whales in the water, once we were out of killer whale territory, I must say, I felt a lot more comfortable, because I was like, if that free willy fin comes up next to me, then I'm not going to be happy. So, yeah, I was scared of them.
We had a moment too where you actually, you mentioned it in the book, where you had a moment with a whale, and and it came up, and then it was like, and you said it, you go, I'm glad it came up over there and not here. Like, and that
totally.
you would have seen some things that most Australians or most people in the world have never seen, and you got to experience that. And what was that like?
Oh, incredible. The most beautiful wildlife you could possibly imagine. Like, even things I forget, like dugongs over in Western Australia, and, you know, just these dolphins and sharks are attracted to the rudder. It makes a sound. The rudder's what steers my ski on the back of the ski. And so they would come up and they would race me, in the day. And I'm like, I'm literally racing with dolphins for kilometres at a time. Like, just stuff that you just go, these animals are so intelligent and, they're so in tune with humans, really. And just amazing. I did, the scariest one was probably the great white in Western Australia that my crew spotted next to my ski. I was very fortunate. The only shark that I saw, a big shark, was in the Northern Territory near Darwin. My skipper thinks it was a bronze whaler leap out of the ocean. It looked like a great white shark. It was enormous.
Yep.
Dive into the ocean, and that was about 100 metres ahead of me. And for the next couple of kilometres, I was like, that thing is in the water with me. That was really scary. So, it went hand in hand. There was plenty of scary moments, but there was incredible
Oh, of course. And you talk about, in the book, you talk about your husband, and this is to put a marriage to the test. You put a marriage to the test, and I really liked how you got really vulnerable in that you said, I need a break. And when you set out for this, and you say it in the book that you tested not only him but yourself, and I guess now if you look at what you did over that 8 months, if you can get through that, you can get through anything. And he's he was a big part of that, of your success.
Totally. Oh, it's just huge. Like, that support crew, and I dedicated the book to him. I wrote a dedication to each of the crew, because you cannot get through that alone. I know Freya, etc., did a lot of it on their own. They did have a lot of boat support and car support, but my core crew that was with me, I would often say to them, you can go home whenever you want to, and they would say, we're not going anywhere. And my husband, I said, you don't have to come on this, and he said, I could not stay home knowing you were out there doing that. What was even harder was he was on land crew, so he wasn't actually on the boat. So someone needed to get us an exemption into WA, someone needed to keep raising money. That was him. So he had the stress of that, knowing he had to keep the operation going. So it is just one of the worst things you can do for your marriage, but also one of the best, because you get through these challenges together.
Yep.
And the hardest thing was that when I would come back to land, I'd already debriefed with my crew. We'd been through all of these really intense experiences, scary, amazing. We'd debriefed, and then my land crew, Ben and Matt, just wanted to know what had happened. I didn't even know where to start. Like, how do you unpack that with someone, and you're back out in the ocean the next day.
Yeah.
So you've talked about the shark sighting with your crew. You don't really want to go through that again with your land crew. So it was this, I created this divide and this distance. And there's also something that's animalistic about doing this paddle, that you are more animal than human. You're on that ocean for 18 hours a day. You become very selfish. You just can't give affection. Like, you don't have that love in the same way to give. So that was really challenging as well, because it was like this physical separation, but also this emotional divide as well that was entirely driven from me.
And that's where I loved how vulnerable you were in the book, is that, and you could sense when you're in the bite and Matt waved you off, and you were like, he didn't know whether you were coming back. And you talk about it as well, is that you were like, I don't know if I am going to come back from this. Yeah. And that's really hard. Like, and that's because the love of your life, you're saying, I'm supporting you in this challenge.
Totally.
But you might not come back.
Exactly. And I had, my hands full of planning and getting out there and paddling. He was having to sit in quarantine on the other side of WA when they got there for 2 weeks, not knowing what was happening. So it was far worse for them in a way, for him and Ben. And I was so glad he had Ben as that emotional support. But I sort of just completely shut off in a way, like disconnected from that, because I couldn't be there for him emotionally. And that sounds so selfish, right? It sounds so selfish, but you're about to head out 500k to sea. You're in waters known for killer whales, great white sharks. I just felt I didn't have that emotion to give. It's like preparing for a big race, a big job, an assignment. And so it was this strange thing that we just weren't on the same level in that way at that time. And then when we crossed 12 days later, it was like, now I don't know how to unpack it. So there's something incredibly selfish about paddling around Australia, but at the same time, they had the most amazing adventures, and we still share them to this day. Like, I'm like, you could write a book about all of the things you experienced, and it lights me up when I hear about what they did on land. And, you know, they had this thing, they were checking out the best pie shops in every town, and we didn't know this. We were on the boat, like, going into rations of beans and rice. I've lost 15 kilos, and they're, like, trying to source the best pie in Australia, and it just makes me so happy because they did have so many amazing times on land. But certainly it was a very different experience, and at times for them really isolating as well.
Oh, of course. And you mentioned it too on the boat, like you're seasick, you couldn't keep things down, you're losing weight, and your body at a couple of points your body was shutting down, but you just went, nah, I've got to keep going, keep pushing, and that in its sense, like, it's just unbelievable. Like, I was just reading going, oh my God, Bonnie, like, you're nuts. Like, fingers are, like you can't bend your fingers. You're in that much agony. You're bulging discs. Like, you're not eating. You're, you know, like, but you kept pushing and kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And there's something in that.
I just remember, thank you. I just remember thinking at 32, you need to lift now. Like, you need to lift more than you ever have, and you will always be able to be proud of what you've done. And, you know, you did this to find out how far you would have gotten. Well, let's see, right? And I was like, well, I can still keep going. My fingers are stuffed. My back, I can't move. I can't stand up straight, but I can keep paddling. And I tell the story in the bite where I was crawling on that boat. I could not walk, but I could get in that ski and paddle 100K. And it was so ugly. I couldn't lift my hands above my belly button. It was equivalent to like crawling a marathon at times. But I just knew that's what it took. And I knew that I would only get one chance at this realistically, logistically, financially. It was only ever going to happen once. And so I thought, I'm going to get this done for all the people who've believed in me, but for myself as well. And there was something really powerful knowing that I only had that one shot at it too.
Do you think too that age was a factor and on your side, like doing it in your like, because if you were to do it, let's just go forward, say 10 years now of you were 42, do you reckon that mental resolve, looking what you've achieved now and what you were able to do you think you could do it again if you were 42 instead of 32? It's
such a good question. I always say I'd never do it again because there's so much water in the world. I want to explore so much. I think I'm so glad I was 32, not 22, first of all, because that emotional maturity, I did not have that until my late 20s.
Who does?
Exactly. But then physically, I felt it was this sweet spot, definitely, of in my 30s. I've found out since I've got a bit of scoliosis, so that will probably get a little bit worse as I get older. I do have the discs in my back had already started to deteriorate from all the ski paddling I'd done prior. I want to keep paddling. So, yeah, it's probably by 42, my back probably wouldn't be in the condition to do it, to be totally honest. And I just felt it was this beautiful moment in time of having the most perfect people around me for it as well. So I'm just so glad that I was in my early 20s because I just felt like it was the right time. And there was something powerful in that too. It was like, this is the time to do this. Like, my races are cancelled. I've got this sponsorship. We've only got half, but that's enough for now. I've got this beautiful husband who's going to come with me. I've got these guys who are going to just happen to be an all-male crew. That's just how it worked out. I've got to go for it. And yeah, there's something incredibly empowering about knowing that you've got this one opportunity to get something done.
And you mentioned your crew, and you've talked about them a lot and in the book as well. And I want to talk about some pretty key, important people in the book that were part of that crew. Is Goatee and your Kiwi crew as well. And so, in that, did you have to find a boat every way along. It wasn't just, right, you've got one here and then that's the whole way around. You actually had to find, like, that was part of the job of the land crew to go, okay, we need to find another boat for the next...
Totally.
Yeah, right.
So our boat that got us to WA had to go back to Queensland for a contract on the reef, which was always a possibility. So we lost them in WA and we had no option. We had no other option. Well, we did. We didn't want to use it. We had a jet ski. And we eventually realised we were going to have to go to that jet ski to keep moving because 14 days and the record's done.
Yep.
We kept moving up the WA coast. We went past a tiny little beach called Seabird and ran into Goaty. He's a gold prospector in the west. He literally has a big goatee, wears an akubra. And he's like, "G'day, mate." That was the first thing he said. He goes, "What the bloody hell are you doing?" And I said, "I'm paddling around Australia." And he was like, "What the hell?" And he just couldn't get his head around it. He said, "That's the coolest thing I've ever heard." Anyway, my crew loved him. They chatted. They exchanged numbers. We went back to a little hotel, not a hotel, a little beach shack I think Matt had found that evening. And they said, "We need a bit more than a jet ski for the next couple of weeks. Goaty mentioned he's got a 6.5 metre fishing boat. Why don't we ask him if he can come along?" I said, who on earth would be able to give up, just a couple of weeks of their life at the drop of a hat? And we rang him, and within 30 seconds he was in. And he said, "I'm in with my best mate Ryan. I'll come with you. This is going to be the adventure of a lifetime. We'd love to." So we kept making our way up. We met them in Exmouth. Mm-hmm. So at the top of the West Australian coast, they came with me for 2 weeks. So we paddled over 100k a day in crocodile-infested waters until we got to Broome, which is where we got the next catamaran. So it was the most fun 2 weeks and the most unexpected 2 weeks I could have imagined.
And you mentioned that, and we're coming up to the top of where this is crunch time, and this is the moment that in the book that this is where I felt the most scared for you, and I wasn't even there. Like I was just reading it, and where the croc stalked you, and that was a moment where I was like, and as you say, They study patterns and they're smart creatures. They're not stupid, and they're so quick. They're so and they're so heavy, and that was where. So was that really that time you felt this was it, and the world talk me through that, and the whirlpool and all that sort of thing.
So for anyone who sees the cover of my book, The Girl Who Touched the Stars.
Got it right here.
Yeah, got it right there. Yeah. I think I pinned it to the Instagram, actually. Just a little shout out for that. But it's my favourite photo. So basically it depicts me in my ski, beautiful, flat, calm, tranquil water, the blue water. That's in the Northern Territory in crocodile-infested waters. And that was actually taken the day after the scariest night of the paddle. So I'm laughing in the picture because my crew were telling me jokes, because that night before, basically we got sucked into it's called an eddy. It's a circular whirlpool. They run off currents. We got stuck in this eddy for 10 minutes going around in circle. It pulls a 10-ton catamaran into it. It makes me believe the Bermuda Triangle is a thing. And the skipper called out, "Stay close." Now, the crew's got torches out to the side of the boat looking for crocodiles. I remember the torches stopping in a particular spot, thinking that's probably not a good thing. Anyway, I'm following this boat. We break the current. 10 minutes later, the skipper stops the boat and he said, "Get on." My crew told me they'd seen a crocodile 10 metres from me while I was in that current. 10 minutes later, they'd seen it again. He saw it slithering away from the boat. So it had actually followed me in that time. And now Guinness World Records, you've got to do every metre of coastline. So there's no motoring up, a bit further along and hopping in there to make you feel better. I had to get back in that same spot. So the next day I had to climb into that spot where my crew had seen the crocodile next to me. And I said to them, "I need you to talk to me today, like riddles, trivia, jokes, just whatever you've got." And so they sat on that side of the boat and they kept me company while I'm paddling in this crocodile-infested waters, because there's logs around. They look like crocodile heads. There's every possibility you're going to see one. It was terrifying. But, that picture, that's my favourite photo because of what it took to get through.
And with that, was there a plan of that if you, like, that's the calmer waters, thank God they were calmer waters. Was that did the crew have a plan if you were knocked off, what to do?
The last skipper I had every day would come out, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, but put a rifle and a handgun next to the helm, so that's where he drives the boat. Yeah, he definitely had that sort of a plan, but it was really just spotting and scouting because they'll often follow. So it was really them being up on that deck, looking out over the water. They've got this most perfect view from the top of the water to see what's in it. And there would always be someone on Bonnie Watch, constantly watching, looking in the water, you know, talking to, when we were near islands, talking to skippers, knowing what was around. Had one been seen? Is one local to that area? My skippers were very good at knowing the islands where the crocodiles hang out. So there's certain islands where they're very populated. We would avoid them. We would take a wide berth. So it was more kind of the route that we took, paddling quickly. I was paddling extremely quickly through that section, and then them keeping a lookout. So there's no real fail-safe plan. But the other thing was not remaining idle in one spot for too long. So you don't want to just anchor that boat up for a day, just hang out, you know, go for a swim, chill on your ski. I finish, I'm onto that boat. We don't hang there for longer than half a day, and then we're gone again. Yeah, right.
And when you were doing the journey, was someone journaling what you'd seen, or obviously taking photos and the documentary footage and all that sort of thing, but were you, because you would have been knackered by the end of it, was someone jotting down, okay, we did this, we had, you know, close call with a shark here, like, for you to then come and write the book later on?
Yeah, for sure. The most ironic thing was Blake kept a journal from day one, and he was so proud of this journal every day, and it got stolen at Bribey Island. Someone broke into our car and stole his journal. That was the whole, he wanted to give it to his grandchildren, like the whole recap of the Paddle of Oz. So just a couple of days from the end, someone stole it. But we also kept another journal. So there was another journal that was there from the second half of the trip. And the footage, GoPro footage, talking into that, my crew would often write for me. I would dictate to them. They would write with hand or into the phone. So I used a mixture of all of those notes for the book. It was going back, interviewing my crew, the journal we had, the notes we'd taken, looking at all the social media posts. I did all of the captions. I would shout them out to my crew on the boat. They would type them. And then the video footage was incredibly powerful because I'd never seen it from that perspective before.
Absolutely. And then as you're getting close to the end, is the excitement starting to build, or is it dread that it's coming to an end? What were you feeling?
Yeah. It was a mixture of emotions. It was like, this has been the most incredible adventure. I don't want it to end, but it was knowing my body was physically spent. I was like, even if I wanted to keep going for a few months, I actually don't know if my fingers would hold up. Ironically, that's what threatened to end the trip in the end, was the fingers more than the back. It was so brutal. The only thing that gave me relief was a bit of warm water at the end of each day that actually lengthens the tendons and ligaments. My discs of my little finger joints were so swollen to twice their size, I could barely grip the paddle. So it was actually the finger joints of all things, that thread, like one of the tiniest little things on your body that
are important,
right, to end this trip. So it was like crawling to the line. So I was very relieved. I was extremely excited, but also, you know, I knew that we would really miss it at the same time. So we were savouring that last week, going, this has been the best thing ever.
What was it like seeing Courtney come out right before the finish? Like, how morale boosting was it to see Courtney? Because, as you said at the start of the podcast, she sort of set you on, sort of gave you the path in becoming an elite athlete. I believe that sort of made your mental resolve and showed you the way. And what was that like for your morale right at the end?
So cool. It was a total surprise. So Matt organised that. Courtney came out. I was like, who is that on the jet ski? She had a hat on and she was on the back of the jet ski with Matt, and it was just so amazing. Then got in and we had a spare ski on the boat, paddled that ski with me into the Seaway at the Gold Coast. And, you know, we've just done so many training sessions in those waters, looking up at the coastline of the Gold Coast. It was just awesome. And I was like, yeah, we're home. You know, the first thing was seeing the skyline of the Gold Coast, having Courtney join me. You know, some other paddlers from Mermaid Beach came out and joined me as well. And it was just like, oh my God, we're actually going to get this done. Because until that moment, like, you might, you know, a shark might come up, or again, like, you might get COVID, or I don't know, something might happen. So when we got into the waters of the Gold Coast, it was like, we're home. Like, nothing's actually stopping us from now. I've got 10 kilometres to paddle back to the finish line. So I think it was really just that moment of like, we're going to do this now. And I say that in the documentary, there's this, I think it's quite powerful, this shot towards the end. I say the monkey's off the back now, and you can just see the relief. And it's the first time I get emotional in the documentary. I was only emotional a couple of times in this trip because it just always felt like this weight on my shoulders that I had a job to do every single day, and it was an obligation. And even when my crew, and I'm pretty raw about this, was celebrating at the Great Australian Bight, finishing that, I went down to my cabin. I sat on the floor and I sobbed into my hands because everything I'd been through, I knew that I still had to keep going and that I was the only one who could paddle exactly. And so it was this weight on the shoulders. And when I saw the skyline of the Gold Coast, I was like, we're home. I can get that monkey off the back now.
And Matt did an amazing thing for you the night before where he got everyone a nice dinner, and that would have been unexpected. It
was so unexpected. So, yeah, he's like, what do you want to do? I said, I'd love to go to a seafood restaurant. You know, we haven't even eaten seafood on this trip. And we did once actually with skipper Josh when he got some seafood from the trawlers up when we were stuck behind Flinders Island for 10 days. But he organised a seafood restaurant at Southport, and everyone was like, where is Matt? We were waiting at the table. It was my core crew and I. We were going to do this celebration. And then everyone just looked towards the door, and Godey and Ryan came in. And I was just like, what? I immediately got emotional. He'd organised, as I say, my Guardian Angels of the West to come. And then the Guardian Angels of the North in Rachel and Rob, the cruising Kiwis who escorted me through the Kimberley, they were next ones through the door. And he'd organised that. And it was just like this reunion in a total different context because we were home, we were relaxed. I had a cocktail and got drunk off one cocktail, which I didn't tell anyone. The next day I was like, oh my God, I haven't drunk in like 5 years. And I had this cocktail and it was great. But yeah, they were there and we just all looked at each other like, we did this. We did this together, and now we can celebrate and we're going to really enjoy tomorrow.
Well, and in that final day, it wasn't all smooth sailing for you because knowing you and reading the story, and you don't do anything by halves, and you put pressure on yourself to be in and docked, ready to be in front of media and live TV at 8:30, and you had to be there. And like, if it was me, I would have savoured the moment and gone, no, you guys can wait, and but not you, not you.
Honestly, so we had Seven Sunrise there at 8:30 at Northcliffe, which is where we're doing the celebration. That's Shaw and Partners' main club, before doing the smaller celebration at Mermaid. And I left the Southport Seaway. I thought I've got heaps of time. Mother Nature had one last trick up her sleeve. She kicked up a headwind for us. So I thought this is going to add a bit more time on, but we're okay. I had beautiful paddlers paddling with me. I had people lining the seaway. I'm waving up, enjoying the moment. I get halfway down and Benny is on the jet ski and said, Bon, you're going to have to pick it up a little bit here. In the end, I was sprinting with Olympian Elise Wood paddling next to me, Ironwoman Lizzie Wellborn, sprinting to get to Northcliffe Surf Club by 8:30 because we were going to miss this cut-off, and I thought we paddled the whole way around Australia. Yesterday, we anchored in the Seaway and had a little relaxing day. We pretended we weren't there yet. But yeah, so I got there with 1 minute to spare, if you'll believe, sprinted into that beach and ran up, and it was just the most incredible thing to have sponsors, family, friends, everyone there as I crossed that line. And I was so grateful they were there because they documented that whole thing. And the atmosphere was unbelievable. And thankfully, my legs worked when I got off. I was like, I haven't tried running basically for months. So fortunately, I found that in my legs to run up the beach.
And with that, with the world record, now that you're on dry land, you cross the finish line, Do you have to log that? And how is that to make it be that it's a world record?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything goes off of the Garmin onto Strava, which is then downloaded as what's called GPX files. So they're these files that can't be changed. It creates a route around Australia, and it all has to match up into this perfect one big route. So basically, that watch, the Garmin, we stopped the watch, and that's when the record finished there. But at Mermaid Beach, so when I had the celebration at Northcliffe, we went up there, did the media. I then had 2 kilometres left to paddle, and it was just such a special 2 kilometres of appreciation, gratitude. And I write in my book that the Jewel building here on the Gold Coast, it's got these beautiful reflective surfaces on the windows. And it was this glittering like green that reminded me of like an emerald, and it almost reminded me of something off The Wizard of Oz, I remember thinking. And I was like, how was that always so beautiful? Or does it just appear so much more beautiful now as everything does? Everything just seemed brighter and more incredible after everything we'd been through. And it was just this most incredible kilometre of paddling home, literally to my home. We live at Mermaid Beach, and coming into that beach. And I'll never ever forget the way that the sun glittered on the water. And that's why I called it the girl who touched the stars, because we'd done it, we'd grabbed it, we'd bagged that gold. I remember running my hand along the water and thinking, I've touched the stars, I've got this big win I'd always wanted, but I don't feel any more complete now than I did a month earlier with my crew dancing in the middle of the ocean, crossing the Great Australian Bight, my crew reading me trivia as I sobbed, or doing this as a team. And I realised that it was never about a record at all. And I was so excited to get that record and tick that off, but it didn't make me feel any more fulfilled. So as an elite athlete, everything I'd always wanted was this big win and never gotten. I'd gotten it, and I'd realised that the big prize was actually finding me again and finding my happy place and connection with others. It was this crazy moment of realisation.
And what you were able to achieve as well was, and I didn't say this at the start, was you actually set out to raise $100,000 for Gotcha for Life, and you achieved that.
Yeah.
And what was that like, handing over a cheque to Gus?
It was pretty incredible, because when I first wanted to do that, Earl said to me, he said, right, you're going to raise $100,000. And I thought, we can't do that. That's unachievable. That's too much. It seemed like so much money. And the way that everyone chipped in to do that was just incredible. You know, people chipping in $5,000, $5, $1, like whatever they could afford, that all of that adds up to get to this incredible sum of money that goes directly into these workshops. So that was just this amazing sort of surprise, really, because a lot of those donations came in those last few days, you know, before crossing that line. But the hard work we had to do, we did some fundraising initiatives along the way. You know, Matt organised to get that money, to get the tally up. And it just showed there was our journey in paddling and raising money for that, and then this incredibly important cause on the side. And it just shows what you can do as a small team of young people who just wanted to do something awesome. And we were really happy with that.
It's pretty amazing. And how did you deal with the after effects, the come down? Because I know athletes talk about the rush of, you know, they win gold or they have an event that they've trained for. And I know, because after I'd done my triathlon, I trained for a year for that, and I had like a withdrawal after it. And how did you deal with that after the event? You know, the last 8 months of your life, this was you eat, breathe, sleep, you live this. How did you deal with that?
Totally. Well, there was the physical and mental part. So it took a few months to sort of get used to life on land. I remember crossing roads and hearing, like, you know, the beeps, like you're trying to, you know, what way the cars come from again. Because you've been a creature of the ocean for the last 8 months. And then mentally, like, the pace of life on land is really fast. You know, out there in the ocean, it's slow, it's beautiful, it's calm. So there was both, but I was so fortunate. Like, I think I knew in WA that there was a book in this when that shark came up to me, and I thought, I'm going to write a book. So I opened my laptop up and I started typing, And that's what really helped, because it was quite cathartic, allowed me to unpack everything that had happened.
I'm smiling because I know what it's like being a fellow author.
Yeah.
Talk me through that journey.
Yeah, exactly. And then it was pitching to the publishers and, trying to get that green light and everything. So there was kind of these off-water projects that I could channel my energy into. And, that was actually really, really special and a whole different challenge. So there was the book and then the documentary. So kind of those projects came just after. So
was there also coaching as well? Did that help?
Yeah, definitely. So there was a lot of opportunity to coach the nippers at Mermaid Surf Club. So they called me, I think it was a week after I got back, and said, "We've got the head coach job opening up. Can you do it?" That allowed me to get back into routine, allowed me to, as I say, 10-year-olds don't care that you've broken a record. They will keep you on your toes. So that was this amazing opportunity, as well as the clinics that I was doing. And I ended up coaching there for 2 years. So just connection with the community and having something else off water to channel my energy into while my body physically repaired.
Absolutely. And achieving what you've achieved, what advice can you give to people when they're in a dark place and like you tell your story? It's such an inspirational story.
Thank you.
Bonnie, do you believe that we are absolutely more capable of doing things that we don't think that we can do?
Yeah.
And what advice do you give to people who might be struggling, who might be going through something, and obviously they don't have to go and do a world record that you did, but what advice can you give to them just to keep pushing through those dark times?
Oh, totally. It's just, first of all, finding your people, I think, finding your people. So that can take some time, but if you follow the things that you're interested in and you love, you will end up definitely finding those people. You only need those couple of core people in your life around you, right? Those sort of ride or die people, those rocks in your life. I was so lucky to have them throughout this paddle. They will empower and inspire you to keep going, to lift to things you never thought you were capable of. And then I think it's just going and doing it and going, you know what, there's every chance I'm going to fail at this. Absolutely. But that's the beauty, is outside the comfort zone. And you might just surprise yourself. And you know what? I always say to people, if you fail, well, you're going to learn something along the way anyway,
100%.
right? And that's where I think the prize is anyway. So I can tell people that I paddled around Australia. I got a world record. I can tell you that is not the most valuable thing from this trip, far from it. So it's the lesson. So I think just push yourself outside the comfort zone, go for that scary thing, whatever that thing is. And we all know what that is generally, and surround yourself with the right people and just know that, life can get really tough and people can be really brutal as well. But if you've got those people by your side, that is what will get you through.
Would you say also that don't let imposter syndrome stop you?
Definitely. And know that the most successful people in the world have that, and they're quite open about talking about that. Even the big, tech people or politicians or people doing amazing things seem incredibly confident, but that's okay. You can have that there too and think, I don't think I belong here. I don't think I'm worthy of this. But you are, and know that hard work will always get you there anyway, and you don't have to be the most talented person.
Talent will only get you so far,
exactly,
then the hard work starts.
Exactly. So that's a really important thing to remember as well.
Absolutely. And what advice would you give your 18-year-old self, and would she listen?
Probably not, no. I was quite, as I said, quite sheltered and probably immature as an 18-year-old, but just that it's okay to make mistakes and be yourself. Like, you don't have to follow, you can be yourself, because I think I always had people that I looked up to or wanted to be like, and I thought I sort of had to model myself exactly off of them.
Yeah, I've been there as well, yeah.
Right, and I think it's just like your own the unique parts of you is what's special. So it's okay to be a bit nerdy, like, because you are. So, at 18, that's okay. Like, own that. You're an academic, own that. Even though you're around these cool athletes all the time, like, tap
But you're
into,
a cool athlete yourself.
Well, thank you. I try. No, but tap into that.
Yeah.
Like, be proud of that. And that's what makes you different and special, and you love learning, so don't be ashamed of that. Or your nerdy little books that you like to read. So I think it's just like those bits of you that you might think are a bit, not normal or not cool. Like, that's what makes you cool.
Isn't it funny that when you're in your 20s, everything you stress about, as soon as you hit your 30s, you go, why did I worry about something and you don't care. It's almost like you stop worrying. And I often say this to young kids that I talk to as well, is that from, I'd say, teenage years right through your mid to late 20s is the most confusing and challenging time of your life, because you're trying to find where you belong. And when you hit your 30s, you just actually get more comfortable and go, what do I care?
Exactly. Yeah, so true. And know that that's okay too. Like, if you haven't found that thing that, you know, or that what drives you and what you love, and that, like, you might stumble across it. So keep trying new things and meeting new people and, you know, be curious and all of that as well. And then, usually by your 30s, you're like, oh my God, I'm in a different career than what I expected, or I've got this whole new group of friends that I feel really at home with. Like, it's just, life is about finding out who you are and finding where you belong and what you're passionate about. So it's okay if you haven't found that as a young person.
100%. And just keep going and keep pushing and get uncomfortable being, you know, get comfortable, being uncomfortable. And just have a go and see what happens. Like, you're a double world record holder, and I want to, because we didn't mention that. So, double world record holder. So, and the second world record, I'll let you explain that one. So world record holder for paddling around Australia, but you also held another world record.
Yeah. So throughout the way, I managed to break the 24-hour record for women a few times. It was 150 kilometres before my paddle. I broke that in the Great Australian Bight, 160. I did 170 in the Northern Territory. I did 173 kilometres across the Great Australian Bight, and we put that out that was the record. We then found out the flat water record was 201, which is a separate record, but I copped a bit of feedback online. So I paddled 213 kilometres with that in mind, back down the Queensland coast, right? And then when I got home, I found out that the men's record was 228. So I thought, there's no better time for me to have a crack at that than right now, when I can sit in that ski all day. So I went and paddled 235 kilometres. I got the gang back together. We went from Airlie Beach to Townsville. And, that one's just as rewarding, to be honest, because that was incredibly painful and I had to really work for that.
Well done. Congratulations. And so now you're a triple or double world record? Double world record holder. You're an author. What's next for Bonnie? What do we got coming up in the future for you, career-wise, and also with Matt, your husband?
Totally, yeah. There's plenty of water in the world to paddle. I'd love to do something in Antarctica. I'm very open about that. So possibly something in the pipeline with that. And in terms of, I've got a children's book that's just coming out mid-January as well. It's called, thank you, Diamond of the Sea. So that's the next big project too. So just, working on this children's book. Matt's back at the Southport Sharks. He actually got a promotion when he got back. He's director of high performance there. So he absolutely loves it, and it's his passion. And we've got our little fur baby with us here, little Staffy. He's 5 months old.
Little cutie.
In the park joining us this morning. So basically looking after him and work on this children's book.
So can we see you in the future? I'm just going to put it out there. Walking Kokoda, walking Mount Everest, conquering Everest. What can we see?
Base camp would be good. I might have to do something on land. I've done the ocean.
Water. You've done water.
We'll see how we go. There's a lot of incredible challenges out there and people doing some really cool things.
Absolutely.
So I might have to have a little look at what's around.
Where can people get a copy of the book, and where do people follow you or get in contact with you if they want to reach out for speaking gigs or just follow your journey and maybe talk to you about some mental health? Like, how do they follow you? Yeah,
so absolutely. So my website's bonniehancock.com. Instagram is where you'll see footage from the paddle, photos. That's at Bonnie Hancock. And Facebook is The Paddle of Oz. And on that website, you've got the book. You've got pay-per-view with the documentary. It's on Foxtel and KO as well. But probably the website's a good place to start.
Awesome. And it's just, honestly, it's been so amazing to read your book and just absolute, all I can say is you're an absolute inspiration. And as I said, I was reading and I was in that kayak with you. I was on that ski going around and feeling the ups, feeling the downs.
Thank you.
And I just want to say you've provided so much hope to people who are struggling, who can just read and think, well, if Bonnie can do that, I can get myself out of the black dog, and I can get back to being thriving in life, not just surviving or merely existing. And it's why I wrote my book as well, is to show my journey to help others, because I know you're passionate about mental health. I know you're passionate, and too often we lose 9 people daily because they think that's the only option, and and I did as well. I thought that was the only way out myself at that time. This book is a shining light to show people that no matter what challenges you're faced with in life, just as you say, just keep paddling one stroke in front of the other, and things get better. In those dark times, that pain, it does ease and eventually stops.
Yeah, amazing. That's really well put. Thank you. And yeah, such a pleasure to share my journey, I guess, as well. And to sort of have, I guess, this book and documentary as a way for people to experience the paddle around Australia, as I said, the raw and the real, and you'll see on there sort of what it took. And I was just really glad and proud, I think, of that approach that we took to take all the polish away and just show it how it is. And I think that's important.
And I think you did it raw and honest. So, Bonnie Hancock, it's been an absolute honour and a privilege to sit down and record your story. I've wanted to do this for a long, long time, and you've become a great mate. And I look forward to catching up with you in the future. So thank you so much for coming on True Blue Conversations.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of True Blue Conversations with your host, Adam Bloom. See you on the front line.